Hey, here we go.
You are listening to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Fouché Way radio show, live every Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m., sponsored by the nonprofit organization called Canine Hope for Improvement Program, where we hope to improve the quality of our dogs' lives by moving towards a no-kill society. The number here is 818-602-4929. Did you know that in order to create a dog from a wolf successfully, we had to breed out of them a great portion of their natural instinct to be fearful of us? This is how we can get an aggressive dog. And ever since then, we have been pushing them backwards into thinking like their ancestors predatorily with the artificial objects that we call toys and games, which we provide in the name of love. And they are being destroyed because of the behavior that these objects produce. This is something that we must explore. We should be looking for the hero within them and stop entertaining the villain within them if we truly love our dogs. You may not know this, but if we can't provide emotionally what a dog needs to fulfill them mentally and nutritionally, they begin acting out subconsciously in ways that are more physical. Now, this may look like an excess of energy if you don't know how to look for signs of frustration, which is an indication of a confused mind, you see. We tend to think that when dogs act out in a physical way, it's a lack of exercise. And that's not true. I'm not saying that they don't need exercise, but I'm saying in most cases it's overrated and misunderstood. We think somehow that energy depletion is a cure-all along with training and treats. Just as we have been led to believe in the food industry that you're not starving unless you're skin and bones. Most don't know it yet, but there is a new physical state for hunger that is not identified visually the old way. This thing called processed foods, it makes the body appearance different. And visually you look fat, but nutritionally you're starving. Just think about the last time you saw a person looking like the kids you see on television in parts of Africa. You don't. The fact is, hunger has a new look. Now, I'm mentioning this comparison because our dogs are starving from a lack of a different substance that we can't see. It's invisible to the eye, just like the starving bodies of our kids who eat junk food every day. We can't see the problem because it doesn't look like one. They look healthy, but they're starving for the right substance. We have to feed the problem of dog aggression from within hormonally and see how we are imprinting and shaping our dog's mind by the things that we do with them. We are actually funding our dog's demise. And when you check it out globally, you will find that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry with toys that's getting fat on manufacturing dog products that are related to prey, causing our dogs to starve for the proper type of socialization which will balance them out. Not this artificial substance that we are feeding their minds, which is really causing them to be put to sleep, or really the correct word is killed. And we can't see it, just as we can't see the starvation of our kids. And we can't see it happening in our dogs because it's done out of love and fun. And our kids are having fun, too, with processed foods while they're growing fat and starving their bodies to death. any kind of mental deprivation along with nutritional in the early stages of the fear imprint and socialization period in a dog's life can have a lifelong consequence. And because of the way we think of dogs, we see this energetic behavior, we think it's a puppy behavior. Or if it's an adult, we say it's probably abused. And sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not. So mental deprivation from poor breeding can affect not only the ability to get along with other dogs, but also the dog can be consistently sick, which can interfere with the socialization and intelligent aspect of the dog, which I call the hero within, the primary, the essence of the dog. You know, mainly the dogs that I see hunger for proper amounts of socialization. Most of the dogs I see are great, but the limited knowledge of the owners can cause the dogs to pay a heavy price. And so consequently, like our kids, they are living sicker and dying younger. And you know, I really don't expect the system to make the change. They're making too much money on circus tricks to stop. And so the cycle continues invisibly, and we don't notice it. We think it's the other person's problem. And the people who don't have problems with their dogs don't feel it's necessary to look closely as to why others are having problems. But I have said before on a previous show, it's going to take a village to save a pack of dogs. And so I'm counting on this village of people who are in the trenches with their dogs and want closure and satisfaction, the ones who really want to save dogs, the ones that are looking for answers, but not in the same old way. People that are progressively moving forward, innovative thinkers, the ones who realize that our dogs are our property and our responsibility. People that realize that help is going to come from educating ourselves about the behavior of dogs. This makes me think of a statement, you know. If I had known better, would we have done better? You know, I've been known to say honestly, my profession was created out of the suffering of people who were living in a world with their dogs that had become smaller than they could bear. And I explained to them their dogs are misunderstanding their intentions. Most people don't have the know-how to express the love that they have for their dogs in a way that is clear to the dog. To let them know that the reason you bought the ball, you bought the frisbee, the stuffed animal, the squeaky toy, the games of tug of war with the roughhousing was because that you were trying to make them happy. And you wanted them to know that it meant I love you. But think, even with humans, how many times have we heard in relationships a person say, I did all of this for you because I loved you, only to hear from the other person that they didn't need all of that stuff. They wanted from you what they needed, not what you thought they wanted. And it was just a miscommunication that led to a terrible end. You see, our dogs can't tell you that they depend on us to know this. They expect for us to think like them. They can't understand that he thinks like a horse or she thinks like a bird. They're preoccupied with thinking like a dog. And if you're only thinking dogs are interested in being predators, stalking, chasing, biting, ripping, killing, then that's what you're going to get from them. And so the people that are on the show today, they all may have felt that they had the doggy from hell, but it was because of what the owners were doing. It's what they were doing. And one of my callers, I'm sure, believes that they have the dog from hell because of what he just did. And so I'd like to start the show with Daniela and Peter with their dogs Rex and Rudy. Are you there?
Yep, we're here.
Okay. Well, look, tell us the story about those two little guys. I mean, you adopted them, and you've been having problems with them for how long now?
About 6 months.
6 months.
With Rudy, we managed to socialize Rudy a little bit, but when we adopted Rex about 2 months ago, it all disintegrated, and it seems like everything that we had done with Rudy went away, and we had a bigger problem. There was aggression, not with each other, but with all of the other dogs that we came in contact with.
Mostly when they're walking on a leash, they show a large amount of leash aggression towards anything that we would come in contact with, whether it's other dogs, cats, people, children. It didn't matter.
Right.
They would attack them.
Yeah, when we see dogs that are acting stressful, they're not understanding what's happening. When we put a leash on them, which actually creates stress, which restricts the fight or flight, and they begin to see their world a little differently. They start to respond emotionally to their environment. And so you started experiencing these problems. I mean, and how was this with your life with this? I mean, how did it affect you every day?
We didn't go out.
We couldn't take them out anywhere. We couldn't leave the house with them without some sort of fear of something happening that would be bad. And so it really limited our walks to. We had to shrink our little path that we would walk the dogs into a very maybe a block around the house where we used to walk. We would like to walk them a little further, but just out of fear, we would shrink it down to almost we'd just take them in the backyard and have them chase us around the pool.
Well, that, and we were fearful of even leaving them at home alone together because we didn't know if it was that aggression was going to stem out to each other.
Right. And what's interesting, when we find that we can't step into this new world, I call outside your door a new world, okay, for them. And so then when our life begins to shrink, and now we're living at home, and we begin to compensate for what we can't do outside. So follow me now. We're not able to explain to them what's happening outside our door. And then now we begin to compromise to do things to say, I want to make you happy and I love you, not understanding that the dog is misinterpreting now what you're doing, so now your problem doubles,
Right.
And did you try to find help at some point?
We did. We went to training, a specialized, quote-unquote, training for problematic dogs, and it seemed to make everything worse. Rudy started becoming more fearful when we would go outside, and he started whining a lot, and then they would get even more aggressive on the walks. So it felt like we took 20 steps back.
Right, because now problem 1, you can't go outside in the first place. Problem 2, the learned behaviors that the dog is now learning inside. Problem 3, you try to go back outside without explaining the two things that you were trying to teach them. And now you're into training, which is the third problem. And now you start seeing the aggression becomes more pronounced. And sometimes they will either start to become people aggressive, maybe aggressive towards the handler.
Right.
Did that happen?
I did with Rex.
Okay.
Rex actually bit my husband on the lip, which was pretty scary because then you start thinking, this could happen to a little child, and then what?
Exactly. And sometimes when you try to seek help, after all of this confusion is thrown in a melting pot, the person that's trying to help you can also be bitten, because, we're teaching
and
them.
These are little dogs,
we both have Boston Terriers, so they're not large German Shepherds or something of that nature.
Exactly.
Right, they're not stigmatized in society as aggressive dogs, but I don't think that, it was a real big wake-up call for us. It clearly didn't matter.
No, it doesn't. You're dealing with the effects of it, And I would suggest anyone go to the Facebook page, take a look at the dogs that we're going to be talking about today on the show, and see how these especially these two cute things, can actually destroy our lives, shrink it down to nothing, to now we start having emotional problems and problems with the relationship between the two, and it can just go in any direction,
Yep.
And And so you were brought to me as a referral, is that it?
We adopted both of our dogs from Boston Buddies, and they were kind enough to refer us to you and said that you have really made a difference in a lot of other people's lives. And we met you on Saturday, this last Saturday, and it hasn't even been a week, and I feel like we've taken our life back already. Wow. I feel like we have a life, and we actually have a real shot at these boys, you know, being able to go out with us to a cafe or, you know,
or to the dog park.
To the dog park, anywhere. I mean, I really feel like we've got a shot at this, and we've already made so much progress in just, you know, 4 or 5 days' time.
I can't tell you really emotionally how that makes me feel. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, you know, where my profession actually came from, you know, and to be able, even though we're talking about dogs, we're really talking about people. And in order to solve the problems of our dogs, we're going to have to look at this emotionally and look at them emotionally, hormonally, as a relationship, you know. And that's how I see dogs. And you are now experiencing something with your dogs that's so powerful, I know, and I can speak for you a little bit, that, you know, you feel in control now. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. And for me in particular, it's so hard because you equate love to, you know, a different way of treating your dog, and it was a real wake-up call for me to hear your words and saying what the boys really needed and changing my mindset. And I think that's part of the growth that we're experiencing in particular. I'm still on a journey and learning, and it's going to take some time for me, probably more than the boys.
Yeah, it's like kids or a school teacher trying to help, and we're not looking at it from the concept of the child and what their background is, or, you know, how much they really understand. You know, we can't say that the child fell when we weren't aware that this was happening with them. And when you're dealing with dogs, it's not fair to say this is what I want from you, and I don't care why you don't want to do it. And in thinking like that, which is based around the positive reinforcement and treats and things like that, we are actually moving backwards. We are avoiding situations. And if people were to go to my YouTube and see these two guys, you will see where, evaluating him properly, we see that he has fear. This is really fear. You saw that on the video, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so in the world of nature, when you are afraid, you go in the opposite direction. So how is it that a dog that is afraid is moving forward to attack? We must understand that that's a learned behavior. Usually when a dogs move forward or animals move forward to attack because they're afraid is because they're cornered. Okay? And that's a natural instinct. But your guy was challenging people because of the way you were living with them. And you see that now. The things that you were doing out of love. You know, I used to get a lot of flack about how can you say that love and affection creates aggression in a dog? And you're a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Yep. It's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And, you know, when we talk about, you know, let's say the opposite, some would say of positive reinforcement, they would consider it to be negative reinforcement, which I actually think that it's the opposite, you know. When we talk about that and discipline and domination, I say that until we come up with a different word. I mean, it is what it is. But the things that I ask you to do to control your dog mentally and emotionally, we can't look at that as abuse. Did you feel like that?
Yeah, I definitely did.
No, I mean, did you feel that it was abusive?
That he was abused?
No, that what I asked you to do to get the
power.
No. Right.
No, not at all. It was a little different, just kind of readjusting my mindset and how to behave, but we still love the boys, and they still love us, and they still give us little licks, and we still pet them, and, there's still love. So what we were doing was just kind of showing them who was boss, right, and being their pack leader.
Yeah.
So, no, it wasn't abusive at all. It was just kind of showing them, we're going to be the ones in control. We're the ones who are taking the lead, and this is the way it's going to be. And they really seem to react nicely to it. They seem more at peace now, which is kind of...
Yeah, there's that word again. We hear that word, peaceful, happy,
Yeah.
And we can't ignore that. We have to look and say, wait a minute, how do you get love and peace and happiness out of discipline and domination when people got to understand your little guys were growling at you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, they were.
So you talk about misinterpretations, interpreting, you're trying to show love and affection and your dog is attacking you.
Right. Yeah, that was a big wake-up call. It was really frightening. And we were ready to give Rex up. Peter and I talked about even possibly having to give up both of them, which we never wanted to do, but we just didn't know what else to do. We'd gone to training, and it just did not work.
The treats didn't work, the toys didn't work,
right.
The extra attention we were giving them didn't work, and we were really at our wits' end.
This is really interesting because people are listening. I want you to understand that when we start seeing neurotic behaviors in our dogs, excessive barking, jumping, excitement, noises, extra attention that we give our dog or that our dog gives us, that we play into, we're all thinking that this is going to build a better, loving relationship. I know this is what the human thinks. But all the dogs that I see that come into my facility that have these neurotic behaviors, we find that they are learned because it was something that we were so passionate about displaying to them and getting back from them that we thought that at some point it was going to mellow out to become this nice, calm, cool, and collective dog.
Right. It was happening.
Exactly. And there are a lot of people out there that think they have fantastic relationships with their dogs, but it is all based on excitement.
Right.
Energy, which is all related to the hunt, but it's misplaced.
Yeah.
That energy is misplaced. That energy that was used for hunting, which they no longer need anymore. They don't have those jobs anymore. Those jobs are now, they're over with. No dogs have jobs that they used to have when we created them, unless you're living on a farm somewhere, a rural area. Right. So we must have this paradigm shift and say, okay, because those jobs are no longer available, we have to change the way we interact with our dogs so that we don't wake up millions of years of evolution that's fake, false.
Yeah.
We can't say, well, because you can't hunt and kill things, I'm going to wake up that hormone by giving you this artificial thing to focus on, to become so neurotic that it's never going to satisfy you because it doesn't satisfy the stomach. As I've said before, some dogs will swallow the things that they chase because they're trying to put a period at the end of all of this to understand the purpose of this lesson, this life lesson. And so until we begin to re-educate ourselves about the way that dogs think, then dogs, if you think about it, every year now have become more and more neurotic. I mean, you hear things about dogs and dogs being destroyed and police shooting dogs and the shelters putting dogs down more now today than you ever heard. It's invisible as to why it's happening. And that's why we're on the show today, because I'm talking to people about that invisible creature that we need now to make visible. We need to be able to see where the problem is and stop pointing the finger at the dog. You know?
Absolutely.
So you've come to me now, you've been away from me, things are still working the way they're supposed to be working because your mind has clicked, you know, and you're on this path. And we've talked a couple of times since then, and you know, I always say talking to me is going to help charge you up because I'm going to keep you on that straight path, you know. And I'm just so happy that Boston Buddy sent you to me and that you have gotten on this page. You know, I used to say a long time ago, I like to say it right now, you drank the Kool-Aid of the Fouché way. And,
Exactly.
and it's working for you. And I want
It really is.
Yeah, I want you to continue, bring them to daycare. You have any problems or whatever, things that you don't understand, like a couple of times you've called me and says, oh, he's acting like this. What does that mean? I like that because that does mean something. That means you're paying attention to your dog. And I'm going to tell you what that means because I've seen it 1,000 times. You know, it's an adjustment that the dog is going through. This is the time that you put the pedal to the metal. You don't lighten up, you tighten up. Okay?
Right.
Good. So, look, Daniela, Peter, thank you for coming on to talk about Rex and Rudy. And, you know, keep strong, man. You know, look, you also are going to be joining up with the pack hikes also because there are other dogs that are on leash. And this is done in Griffin Park, and we'll talk later. I don't have that information with me to actually give it to you so you can join up. But I think that'll be something that you will enjoy also. Okay?
Brandon, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
We can't thank you enough for showing us the way and really changing our life and changing the boy's life. I mean, I'm so grateful.
Well, tell a friend. Yeah, tell a friend. Teach someone else. Bring them in this direction. Like I said in the beginning, it's gonna take us. It's gonna take the people that are actually dealing with this that are gonna make that change because it means something to us. It doesn't mean anything to the industries that sell the toys or you know the institutions. They're just doing their thing. We're gonna have to make that change. Okay?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, our next caller is Claire with a dog named Rupert. Claire, are you there?
Yes, hi.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
I'm so happy to talk to you because you said something to me the other day. You know, you are a horse enthusiast. You work with horses. And your dog, and people, if you haven't gone to the Facebook, I want you to go and take a look at what their dog did to her husband. This bite was a terrible bite. I mean, the picture that you see there is a picture where it's all stitched, but if you had saw it before that, right, Claire?
Oh, gosh, yes, horrible.
Unbelievable. And this call is really important because this is a very beautiful dog. I call him the Disney dog because he has that look. One ear flopped down, you know. He's got that.
He could be in commercials.
Oh, absolutely. The cutest thing. He's big and fluffy. The cutest thing. But this dog was nipping or growling at people. Your sister?
No.
Tell the story.
We had him for about 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And he was picked up off the street. He was skin and bone. He was at the pound.
Mm-hmm.
And we got him just before he was going to be put down.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never been in a house before. He was amazed when the television went on. When it flushed the toilet, it was a real adventure. So he'd never been in a house. He'd never obviously been socialized, and he'd been starved. But he was a really nice dog, and he got along really well with my other two, although he played really roughly with Rosie, our lab, who was also a very dominant dog. So to the point where it was just going on all the time, and it was just too much. He also when he was overstimulated by something, good or bad. He hates trash trucks and motorbikes. And so he would run through the house and pace and root. And those are the two behaviors that I was really concerned about. Everything else seemed to be going fine. And then my dog sitter told me that he had snarled at her when she had gone past him with food one time. So didn't do anything about it. And then a couple of weeks later, he was eating his supper on the back porch because I separate them when I feed them. And my husband walked up the stairs of the back porch and he snarled at him. So those were the two warnings that I did nothing about.
Okay.
Then one day I was in the kitchen with the dogs and my husband, and I had to give medication to one of them, so I was putting it in cheese. And Lou, my husband, said, oh, give me a piece of cheese and I'll give it to Rupert. Gave him cheese. He had Rupert sit and he handed him cheese. He took it very nicely, and then a piece fell on the floor. And my husband pointed at it and said, look, Rupert, there's cheese on the floor. And Rupert, no warning, no growling, just grabbed his right hand that was pointing at the food and his lower arm and just sunk his teeth in. And then deep puncture wounds. And, boy, was that a wake-up call.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, people that have not experienced this, and the people who have experienced this, it's horrific.
Oh.
I mean, it's like the Twilight Zone when it happens.
Yeah.
You know, the bike, you see it happening. The bike comes, but you don't believe that it's happening because, of the circumstances around it. You're pointing at some cheese. You're trying to help the dog, which is back to the love again, right?
Yep.
And you're pointing, and you're saying, hey, you dropped some cheese. I want you to get every little morsel. And he turns and grabs and shakes and pulls your skin apart. That, it just disembobulates the mind, And just as quickly as that takes place, the dog can act like it never happened.
Yeah.
And, I'm being very graphic about this and bringing it up because everything that you have done for your dogs that you have, or rescue dogs, you did out of love. And every step we take, every move we make is with love in our eyes. When we look at them, it pulls on the heartstrings. So we feel, like I felt when I got mauled by a dog, that every dog likes me because I'm a dog person. I love them, so they must like me. It doesn't work that way. This is where nature has to kick in, and it has to be brutally put in front of you to say, we must obtain the leadership first, so the dog knows, without a doubt, that we are in charge and that we control every aspect of their life down to the morsel of cheese that falls on the floor. If we don't understand that, and we think from the human's perspective of equality, then we're not looking at it from the way nature intended for them to think, competitively. Okay? That's why the leader of the pack controls every aspect of their life. How much water they can drink, how much food they can eat, if they can procreate or not, where to go, when to come back, when to sleep, when to wake up, when to move, everything. That's what I call leadership. And because of that, nature has hardwired in the dog to see that and respect that as love. That means love to the dog. Okay? Now, when you were in my waiting room, it was a little difficult, you said, to accept everything that I was saying. Can you explain that?
Yeah. I understood what you said, And I agreed with what you said intellectually. It's just it was, 180 degrees from the positive reinforcement kind of stuff that we've all been listening to for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I understood what you were saying. I just didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of unsettling, to be honest with you. But when I got home and I was thinking about it and really thinking of all the things that you had said, I sort of had a light bulb moment, because you said to me, you have no problem disciplining your horse. Why would you not discipline your dog?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that was the moment where my it sort of kicked in, and because if you're dealing with a 12 or 1,500 pound horse, if you don't discipline them, if you don't tell them what to do, you're in deep trouble.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I've seen people spoil their horses, doing exactly to their horses what we've been doing to our dogs.
Uh-huh.
And then you have a lethal weapon on your hands.
Isn't that something? A lethal weapon. You're telling the truth. That's a lethal weapon.
Oh, it is. It is. What you do with them on the ground translates into what happens when you ride them.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want a 1,500 pound horse telling you which way you're going to go and at what speed? And
and once they start that, hey man, they put the pedal to the metal once they start telling you what to do, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
So I had a real change in the way I understood and got what you were saying. And then Rupert, of course, offered me a couple of opportunities to use your method. Mm-hmm. The first one was he was rushing the door when Lou was trying to get out to go to work. He wanted to go with him.
I see. And
a little bit of discipline, and the behavior stopped, and he went, "Oh, sorry."
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So that was the end of it. The next day was trash day. So when the trash trucks came around, he was running up and down stairs, running through the house, barking, whining, rooting. And same thing, I used your methods, which are unemotional, not cruel,
mm-hmm.
but fast.
Mm-hmm.
And the behavior stopped instantly.
Right.
And he sort of looked at me and went, "Oh, okay," sort of shrugged his shoulders and went in the kitchen and lay down.
Yeah.
And I've had to discipline him on a couple of things since, but I can't even remember what they were, but they were minor.
Right.
But those were the major behaviors that I had to deal with, and it worked.
Yeah,
it worked.
Right.
And he's calm. Mm-hmm. He's he's a dear dog. He really is.
Mm-hmm.
But he's much calmer. He looks to me to tell him what to do. He's very respectful.
Wow.
Interestingly, there's no more playing rough with Rosie.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that was because he had spent time with your pack of dogs and he just got fed up with
mm-hmm.
playing and fighting. But he and Rosie, there's no play fighting. I mean, they go and hang out together, but the constant roughhousing has finished.
Yeah, they put a period behind it. They understand. They say, okay, I get it now. Yeah. And what's also good about this, even though you brought Rupert for the problem, you now know that your other dog needed it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she's coming tomorrow.
Right. which is great because, I've always said that I'm for those dogs that have issues. And then someone mentioned to me, I think it was Debbie Fan, and she says, no, you are for all dogs, because if we had known what we should have known by now, we wouldn't be having problems, Yeah. And I said, okay, that's good. And I'm hearing it from you too. And we're going to check her out and get her straight. But I wanted you to come on because you got that aha moment. The bite was real. Your husband felt it. And you're gaining control over this. And you're letting that bite go just as quickly as that dog let it go after he bit you. And you're replacing it with your leadership. And that's what I wanted people to hear. So I want to thank you, Claire, for coming on to talk about Rupert. And keep up the good work.
Brandon. Yes, it's been so eye-opening for me. I just sort of mentally kick myself for not knowing it or doing it before, especially when I treat my horses differently.
Exactly. Well, you know.
But it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see the calmness in these dogs that came to us with baggage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Who knows what it was, but, you know, I can't oh, poor doggy them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, giving them this structure of discipline is much more calming and to them than the constant positive behavior.
There you go.
Training, because, you know, as I said to you the other day, you know, positive reinforcement is a full-time job that doesn't go anywhere.
Doesn't go anywhere.
You know?
Gets you bit. It gets you bit
you just
sometimes.
got to keep doing it, you know, and they're just sitting there looking at you saying, more treats, please, you know?
Exactly. All right, Claire.
So anyway,
I will see
so
you
much.
tomorrow. You're very welcome.
And I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, great. Well, our next caller is Joshua. Joshua, are you there?
I am here, sir.
Hey, man, I'm excited to talk to you because this is a little different, this situation here. And I want to end the show with you. But you had a problem, and I'm going to get on you just a little bit, not much.
Okay.
Okay. You went on a vacation or a trip of some sort, and you decided to have someone come in and watch the dogs, as opposed to sending the dogs to me or sending what we'll call today the problem child to me and having that person watch the other dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this call that one dog attacked the other. And it was very interesting that you had figured this out because you've been to me before, I've talked with you before. You figured the problem out. And kind of, can you tell the people what took place?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's 10 years worth of backstory with these dogs, but this particular incident, we, like you said, we went on vacation, and I think we originally had someone who was going to stay here, who we trusted and had experience with big dogs, and then, you know, shortly before the trip, they said they couldn't stay, and so, you know, we did bring up, well, maybe we could leave the dog, you know, with Brandon. But, you know, we were going to be gone for over a week, and then both dogs, and I'm like, you know, we're already spending a good chunk of money on the vacation, like, you know, the cost is going to add up. And my wife said, well, you know, I've got this other friend, and, you know, he's watched another dog in the neighborhood. I've seen him walking around here, and maybe he'd be happy to do it. So, you know, without thinking about it too much, which, again, is the issue here, I just said, okay, well, yeah, let's talk to him. And he came over, said he was happy to do it, and I went through the rule book, which, you know, when you have dogs like Bruce, you know, it's a lengthy rule book. You know, you could see the guy getting overwhelmed as I keep going through rules and more rules and more rules. Right. So, you know, I laid down very simple stuff like, you know, the dogs are to be on leash at all times, always walk ahead of them, you know, no dogs on the couch, no dogs on the bed, don't meet other dogs in the neighborhood while you're out. I just avoid, you know, just like preventative discipline at all costs. So anyway, it's come the end of the vacation. When he picked us up at the airport, he then told us that he had had a few incidents. And the only dog-related one really was that you know, Bruce, the problem child, had attacked the other dog, and this was 2 nights before. So, and what he explained had happened was that the living room is set up, you know, there's our sitting area with a couch and a table and whatnot, and there's a dog bed sort of, you know, removed from the couch that they could sit and still, you know, see and be in the living room when we're in here. So the dogs were on their beds, and he went and laid down on the beds with the dogs and, you know, laid and spooned and snuggled one dog, and then moved to the next dog and did the same for them, gave them snuggles and kisses and whatnot, and then got up and sat on the couch. And within a minute of sitting on the couch, he just heard the fury of the dogs getting into the fight. And he stood up quickly and yelled at them, and you know, it all happens very fast, as any of you know, had a dog fight on your hands.
Right.
And then he said he remembered that someone had said, you can hose dogs down with water to break them up, to snap them out of whatever. So he had a glass of water at the table, and he poured it over Bruce and while yelling at him, and I guess he managed to get Bruce to get distracted and let go of Sasha.
Right.
As his first attempt to pull him off was unsuccessful, he said Bruce had a pretty good grip on her head, and it was obviously quite furious.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the story he told us, and when we came back to the house, obviously we were disappointed to hear it, because I think this particular one is the fourth incident that we've had over their course of 10 years where Bruce has attacked our other dog, Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were definitely disappointed to hear it. And when we got home back to the house, and I got to examine the dogs and kind of check out the vibe that was going on here, as the house sitter, our friend was preparing to leave, after discussing the whole thing and going through it, I witnessed him. Even after I said, I didn't want to call him out and make him feel bad, because it's not his fault. He is who he is. But
right.
At the bottom, he's too soft for a dog like Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
And he put the affection always before any discipline or domination. There was probably no discipline and domination while he was giving them all affection while we were gone.
Mm-hmm.
So even after having this discussion, I watched him, he said goodbye to us, and then he walked over to the dogs and laid back down on the bed and was giving both dogs, one at a time snuggles. And I'm sitting there in my head going, oh, shit, this is about to just blow up again right in my face, So he left, and then, the following day, the dog who was attacked, Sasha's conditions worsened. We ended up having to take her to the emergency room because she got an infection, and so she had to be drained, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, my wife and I were obviously dealing with the emotional aspect of that whole thing, which is when I contacted you, and because this is the fourth instance in our house, and that's among many other instances out of the house. We kind of were feeling in the emotional state like we were at the end of our rope, and we needed to find another option for Bruce.
Right. And
I guess that's where we are today.
Okay. And so this is the part when I kind of get on you a little bit, okay? And we can do whatever you want to do, okay? But the mistakes are being made by us, by you,
mm-hmm.
by the
mm-hmm.
dog walker, okay? And it's not necessarily about a person being soft. It's about them understanding what it is that they have to do, just like that list that you left for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And jealousy is real amongst animals because they're pack animals. The hierarchy
mm-hmm.
creates the jealousy. But the mistakes are made by us, It's like having an autistic child, and then we want to act like this child is normal, when there are some issues. And
mm-hmm.
there are certain ways that we have to be, and they're simple. They're really simple, but we don't like having to do it because we wish that it was normal, It's like, I guess, being in a reintroducing yourself into a relationship, and you just wish that it was like it was in the beginning, and you didn't have to watch what you said and all that. We can wish all we want. It's just something that has to take place,
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're at this point where we're thinking about you want to get rid of the dog because of this. And, of course, I always say, look, man, I have problems with my dogs sometimes, too, because there's so many dogs coming in. But it's just the way of life, And,
mm-hmm.
I always say to people, and I've actually had people say to me, well, if this were a child, I couldn't give him up,
Mm-hmm.
And it is, as far as I'm concerned, it's just like a child, And so I will always try to get people to keep their dogs and to work through this thing because I didn't say it, but whoever once said it, I think it's a good statement that we don't get the dogs that we want. We really get the dogs that we need because it's going to make us better people. And there's one last thing I want to say about Bruce, is that when I came to your house the first time, I asked your wife a question because I saw something. Yeah, you're laughing. But this is what I do. And I asked her, without asking you, I said, well, tell the people what I asked her. Do you remember?
Yeah, you asked my wife if I had an explosive personality.
Exactly. And she looked at you, then looked at me and put her head down and said, yes. And I said, that's it.
She laughed.
Yeah.
She laughed.
Yeah, because that's how your dog is acting. You have imprinted on that dog, and he is mimicking you. And without going too deeper into the relationship and stuff, that's exactly what's happening, and you know exactly what I'm saying. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, I still want you to think about it, even though we're going to talk about it. I know your wife's probably saying in her mind, she's saying, wow, at least I get a chance maybe to get rid of one of these guys.
It's not so much one of them. It's just that she feels she's very protective of the other dog who keeps getting the brunt of these issues and these attacks. So she's upset by the incident, and I understand. Because poor Sasha, she's quite chill, and she just she hangs. She's part of the family. She doesn't challenge Bruce in any way, and she gets attacked and has to go to the ER and get her eye stitched up, and
I get it.
It's emotional.
I get it. This weekend I want you to watch some nature channels, man, and when you've got the run of the litter or the lowest one in the pack, they've got to grin and bear it. That's just the way it is. That's just nature. And I know it's different with us, and we have the option of getting rid of it or whatever, but I still want you to think about it. We're going to talk again today about this. Maybe I'll have you back on again, but I just wanted people to hear that it's so important to be on top of things and to have the right people watching your dog, that we don't have these kind of problems. And, Josh, time is rolling, but I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to talk to you later. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Fouché Way Radio Show. And tune in again next week, same time, same place, where we'll talk about how to control the behaviors of our dogs. Okay? Thank you, Josh.
Right.
I'll talk to you later. Ciao.
Thanks, Brandon.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.